Rob, what is our first main topic today?
Well, our first main topic comes to us from Frederick Ashton, who says, "Hey, John and co-host, I was looking at some upcoming TV shows that I'm excited about, and obviously Lord of the Rings is one of them. I saw that it's going to be the most expensive show of all time. The question I have is, why? Surely being one of the most iconic names in entertainment is enough to draw an audience if the material is good. So why so much?" Well, John, I first off want to say that one of the things about this number and how much money the show is costing, we have to remember that to acquire the rights alone to make this show, before they've spent one dime on production, they spent $250 million just to buy the rights that give them the ability to make a Lord of the Rings television show, which there's never been a rights deal, as far as I know, for a motion picture or television property that costs anywhere remotely. I mean, normally you pay $1 million or $2 million, maybe $5 million, or perhaps, God forbid, $10 million. But a $250 million rights deal is far and away the most extreme, excessive rights deal ever negotiated in the history of motion pictures or television. So right then and there, it's already the most expensive TV show ever made, and they haven't shot a frame. And this comes to us from Benjamin Walker. There's a lot of talk about the money, but I kind of feel like that's what you need to do it right. It's like if you found someone you're in love with and you want to buy them a ring, you got to do the best you can to show that you're committed to it, and it's not unlike that. This is not a legendarium that you want to skimp on. See, I feel like, John, once you spend $250 million on the rights, the idea is, well, now we have to spend as much money as possible to justify that expense, which is kind of odd because the Lord of the Rings films, while not inexpensive, were very handmade. You know, they did not break the bank in terms of production. There was a lot of innovative, it was like a home movie almost, well, not quite, but, you know, Weta Workshop and Weta Digital and Peter Jackson's team was able to keep the price down because they controlled all facets of production. And I think that it is odd. Like, once you spend $250 million, I would think that, well, why don't we figure out a way to creatively do this without breaking the bank? But they're talking about this show's going to end up, the first season's costing in excess of $450 million. Now, I understand once you throw all that money at a rights deal, you want to make sure that this is an A-list, the Tiffany of TV shows. But really what it comes down to, like anything else, John, is the writing, the story, and the characters. And I'm just hoping that they come up with the kind of scripts that we saw in Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings. And unfortunately, it's not like they adapted an actual book. They've only had the appendices and all of the Silmarillion and Beren and Luthien and all the other stuff Tolkien's written, but it's not like they have dialogue to draw from. So what do you think? Are you worried about this?
Not in the least. Not in the least. And I'll tell you why. Obviously, when you go back and look at the original Lord of the Rings movies, right? And you look at the price tag that I believe they did the entire first trilogy for under $300 million. I think is what I believe that's what it came to. Like, think about that. That is ridiculously inexpensive for movies like that. Like, all three under $300 million. Now, of course, at the time, you got to remember, they also did some things very guerrilla indie style on that at the time. Now, remember, once they then got to the Hobbit films, the 3 Hobbit films cost more than double than what it cost them to do the Lord of the Rings films. It's not that they put a whole ton more into it, but the people who were only charging them so much to do the Lord of the Rings films were now charging them a lot more to do future films. It's like, listen, now we can't give you the family rate anymore because obviously you're making billions of dollars. So that comes into play here too. The reason why I am so bullish on this, a production budget, not counting that $250 million that Rob was talking about just to acquire the rights, they're spending $465 million on season 1. Now, before any of us rush to say, well, so they just think they can throw money at it and that'll make it good, I don't believe that's what's at play here. I believe what's at play here is exactly what Benjamin was saying. To me, as an audience member, this is telling me in very clear terms, Amazon is saying to the audience, we are taking this deadly fucking seriously. That's what this number sign says to me. This dollar amount to me is Amazon sitting me down in a chair, looking me in the eye and says, do you doubt how serious we're taking this? Like, is there any doubt now how absolutely deadly serious we are taking this? And Rob, then when you go back and you look at the people they have involved, remember about a year and a half ago, they put out that little sizzle thing that just showed this big long list of everybody behind the scenes that they have, like top-notch people, absolute top-notch people they have working on this project. And then you go even beyond that, and you look at what has Amazon been producing? Oh, I don't know. Just shows that completely sweep up at the Emmys, like The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which I think is one of the best shows to be on TV in the last 5, 6, 7 years. They've done things like The Boys. They did that Nazi Hunter one with Al Pacino. I can't remember the name of that, but a ton of
Hunters.
The Hunters, that a lot of people ate up and loved. They've cranked out award-winning shows. So I'm sitting here and saying, hey, look, obviously we won't know if this is any good until we watch it, right? But what do we have in front of us? Well, we have a network that has been putting out, when they do put out original shit, they have been cranking out excellence. We have a company that says, you want to put your money where your mouth is? Okay, we're going to spend more money on this one season of television than anybody has ever spent on a single season of television. That's how serious we are. And then to not just rest on their laurels of saying, well, it's called Lord of the Rings, so everybody's going to watch it. They go out and get top people to work on it behind the scenes. Now, of course, this could still end up being an absolute disastrous, terrible show. Of course it could be. But if we want to actually take the tangible elements that are in front of us right now and say, based on what we have, do we have good reason to feel optimistic? Hell yes, we've got good reason to feel optimistic. I think they are doing everything right, taking this seriously. Now, also, Rob, I should point out too, IndieWire put out a really good point about this. They said one of the reasons, besides the actor saying, listen, we're doing this because we want to show we're serious. But secondly, IndieWire pointed out that Amazon's aspirations about Middle-earth do not end with this one season of this show.
Right.
They want to create an entire franchise. And they know that the only way we can possibly do that successfully is if we come out of the gate strong. Because if we come out of the gate with a season 1 of a Lord of the Rings show and it falls on its face, you can kiss everything else goodbye. No one's going to give us another chance. So we got to do this right. And so, again, I look at this, Rob, and I just, dude, I'm giddy. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm giddy. I'm giddy that they're doing it at all. I'm giddy that they're so serious that they're putting this amount of money into it. I'm giddy about the talent they've had already behind it. I'm giddy that they're shooting it already. I'm giddy that they have big plans for it moving forward. Rob, if you had to say there was one red flag for you, if you had to say, looking at the whole Lord of the Rings situation, because I've been sitting here spilling all these positive signs, but if you had to look at it and say there's one red flag for you that gives you a little bit of pause, would you have one off the top of your head that you would point out?
Yeah, I think that the people that they picked to run the show, the two showrunners, are very inexperienced. And this show is the kind of show, you're not just making a TV show, you're juggling a whole fantasy world. And basically, you're asking two relatively inexperienced showrunners to understand not just characters and story, but how to do an epic fantasy, meaning you've got set design, you have VFX. You couldn't have picked a harder subject to do. And that's the only thing that would give me pause. They've got a lot of other talented collaborators that they're working with, but the pressure on them is certainly unenviable. So I wish them well. I want this show to be great, but I would say I'm going into it cautiously. I'm really crossing my fingers, hoping it's great.
And we won't find out until it comes out, of course, but we'll see until then. Question is for you guys. What do you think about, not only, we've known for a while this is going to be the most expensive season of television ever produced, but about the reasons they're saying, because we make sure it's got to be done right. We have big future aspirations, but I don't know. How do you guys feel about this? Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Pardon me. Okay, guys.